Recently, I decided to finally start to open up more to family and especially like my parents. And I, one of the big things that I wanted to bring up just to have it more known between me and the family so that they can be more understanding and know what I'm dealing with is the topic of invalidation. I have noticed that throughout my everyday life, so many different times with so many different kinds of conversations and things that come up, I feel so invalidated. And I tried to explain that to dad that like I struggle with that, and he asked me, he says, "Can you give me an example or you know something to help me understand more of what you experience and what it's like, what you deal with." And in that moment, I don't know if it's just because of the fact that I'm so physically messed up in the head or what, but like I in that moment I could not come up with, I couldn't figure out any words to explain like how it affects me, and when it does, what kinds of things make me feel that way. And I have been watching a lot of different kinds of videos from a YouTube channel called Anthony Padilla, and I love this channel, and it has actually helped me out tremendously with a lot of different things. And watching different videos and seeing other people has been making me feel more validated that I'm not the only one to experience the kinds of things that I have in my life. And for me, just invalidation being one. And this morning I had a light bulb moment that after watching 3 or 4 different videos, like, oh my gosh, this is like making sense. Things are coming together for me in my head. And I decided to write it down. I have a notebook that I write down everything. I'm using it as like a self-care kind of log, I guess. I'm trying to map out everything that I can and work on issues with myself as much as possible. And what I wrote down is invalidation is such a huge issue for me. And currently I'm still trying to understand it. I think that the root of it really comes from living the life that I did and looking at my life from a different perspective. It feels and looks a lot like a mix of being kidnapped, but with the government's permission, human or sex trafficking, being held hostage, and like living in a cult. And all of these things, it makes sense to me. That's exactly what it feels like. It's like a mix of all of these things. It was almost like it was a forced kidnapping from the government, because I was court ordered to go live where I did with my grandparents, where all of the abuse happened all of my life, from the day I turned 5 until shortly after I turned 20. So for that 15-year span, I have been living with my grandparents and enduring things that are borderline unimaginable. And at the same time, I'm being used as like a sex toy. So it was basically like human trafficking or sex trafficking, but only by the family and only there at home. But it was so far out of town that it was, our next door neighbor was a half a mile away. So there was basically no consequences for whoever in the family to do whatever they wanted with me. And the fact that they were brainwashing me starting at 5 years old to make me think that all of everything that's happening is normal and that everyone does this. And being held hostage, I'm not allowed to have a social life of any kind. I'm being pulled out of public school. I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. I'm not even allowed to even ask about my own family members on mom's side of the family. And at the same time of all of this, it was like living in a cult. All of the brainwashing, everything, it's just like a very small cult just within the family, and mainly with my grandpa. And there was never any form of justice for me in any way at any point in my life yet. There has been no form of closure. Everyone who's harmed me in the ways that they have, they all got away with it. I mean, my brother, he went to jail for a few years after, when I was in second grade, my school counselor was able to get me to finally say that I was being raped by my brother. And then as soon as I said that, I didn't say it quite like that, but when I was able to finally get enough information out to the school counselor, then the cops were called and my brother was sent off to jail, which he was later released. And I feel like one of the worst parts is that not only that they got away with it, that everyone got away with it, especially the main abuser, which was my grandpa. He got away scotch-free. I'm not aware of any of the consequences that the abusers are projecting onto me don't appear until years later in life, so that I'm not aware of these things. I don't know about them. And now that the main abuser is dead, all of my unanswered questions will never be answered. I have so many things that are unanswered, and I don't know if I will ever have any answers to these things. I've had people tell me after leaving home, when I very first started to open up to other people, I've had people tell me, oh, this didn't really happen. Your grandparents wouldn't have done that. They loved you because they were your grandparents and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that's not the case. How do you explain things how do you explain the hysterectomy that I had? The brain damage, the nerve damage, everything that I deal with now in life, how do you explain that? If they loved me so much, and I have, physical, hard evidence and medical proof that this was caused by certain things. Like, my brain damage was caused by physical trauma that happened for years and years throughout my life. And I see videos, and I've seen and heard of other people that have been in very bad situations, kind of like mine, that people have been kidnapped, or they have been, survived sex trafficking and human trafficking and escaped cults and things like this. And they are able to get it out and to have it more known. And when I try to explain my life, my experiences, it seems like I'm being silenced, because people tell me so many times that, that I'm supposed to just get over it, just move past it, forget about it, move forward. That I'm just, I'm too caught up in the past, that I'm dwelling on it, and that's not the case. I'm trying to understand it so that I can move past it and work through it. And I feel like the more that I get silenced by people that are telling me that they can't handle listening to my story, to my life experiences, they're silencing me, and that makes me feel even more violated and even more invalidated. And I don't know how to deal with it, but I've finally been able to put two and two together just now, that's where the root of my issues with invalidation comes from. And I'm doing everything I can to work through it and try to heal and recover from that. But I don't know how. I mean, I'm not gonna give up. I will keep trying and doing everything I can to get past it and work through it. But I'm still extremely lost. I'm still trying to understand so much. And it's been a very difficult process, but at least now I know where the root issue is and where it came from. And if I know what the root is, then I can start working on mapping out, like, okay, here's the root issue, this is where it came from. Now, what are the other symptoms? What are the other side effects? And how can I work through them? How can I move past it? How can I live, essentially, with all of this. And it's a very tiring process, and it works me over a lot, but I feel like I'm finally onto something. I feel like I'm getting somewhere now.